Good morning. My name is Chris Burr, and I graduated from Westminster in 1969. That's a half a century ago. And I'd like to begin, first of all, I'm supposed to breathe, smile, and look up. So I'm going to try to do those things. And I'd just like to begin by saying, the person who greets you when you come into Westminster is this person, Charles. He's one of the great people I've ever run into in my life. So if you ever need to know how to walk through life, follow that example. He's 5 children. I've gotten to know him on a couple of occasions. I want to begin by thanking the school for inviting me to come back here. I retired last June after having an adult life that was split between business and school teaching. And so for the past 14 years, I was a teacher and a coach and advisor at Noble and Greeno School outside of Boston. But I wanted to come back here to not only express my gratitude for the school, but because this was a great school for me. If you notice that I get a little emotional, don't worry about it. I'm not having a heart attack. It just happens. Right? So it was a great school for me, and it loved me at a time in my life when I was most unlovable. And people stuck by me. And I was the kind of kid that I could tell this. When I was walking down the corridors of the academic building, I could see teachers kind of move away from me. By the time I got to be a senior and a junior and a senior, because I had my own measure of kind of anger and frustration in me. But not all of them did. Some of them, enough of them stayed with me. And for those of you who are young teachers and you see someone like that, actually that's an invitation of need. Move towards those people, not away from them. So I want to tell you just a couple of Westminster stories about something that I think we all share. We all kind of walk through our lives wondering and unsure about how other people see us, unsure about what impact we might have on the lives of others. So the story begins when I was at the end of my 8th grade year. My father was an educator. He had worked in schools like this his whole life. So at the end of my 8th grade year, he walked me through Berkshire, Gunnery, Hotchkiss, Choate, and the last place he brought me was Westminster. And there was a senior who did the tour. And I think his name was Art Turton. And he was a tall guy, kind of wavy hair. And he's walking us around the campus. And my father was kind of the chatterbox. He knew all the questions to answer. But like probably most of you, I didn't say a word. I just followed along. And I remember we were over near Memorial Building. Is that still called Memorial Building? And it was a beautiful day. But I have this vivid memory of thinking to myself, I can't believe how nice this person is. And how nice he is to me, and how thoughtful he is. Because I was just in the 8th grade. He was a senior. And I'm sure that he had no idea of the way that I saw him and the impact he had on me. And in large measure, that's why I came to Westminster, which completely set me on this certain trajectory in my life. So, the next year I enroll, I come as a 9th grader. Do they have dorm rooms at the top of main building anymore? They do? Okay, good. So I was put at the top of main building in Mr. Hopley's corridor of the room because I measured it was 8 by 9. It had a metal gym locker, a metal bunk bed, a small desk and a chair, and that was it. It was kind of a dump. I really didn't care. We had fun. And as a 9th grader, I was tiny. And I didn't probably notice that many things, but there was one thing I really did notice. And I know there's like the football program that does not happen here anymore. But as I was walking up the 3rd football, I would walk by this football team that they had. These guys were enormous and strong and fast and kind of scary. Some of them looked like they had shaved twice a day. They were so much older. And I was so impressed by them. And they had guy who was a guard for the University of Pennsylvania back in the 50s or something, had a whistle around his neck, and this deep, gravelly voice, and I was kind of mesmerized by him as well as the team. Well, their season starts, the varsity season starts, and I mean, I'm just like, I'm 15 years old, and I'm running up and down the sidelines, and they're beating everybody that they play, and I mean, this was fantastic. And they would have no idea the impression it made on me. Well, the only school that that put their undefeated season in jeopardy was going to be Canterbury. And Canterbury was undefeated, Westminster was undefeated. I'm sound asleep with my roommate Matt Snyder at the top of the main building. And in those days, on Saturday mornings, there was something called voluntary chapel. It was actually before breakfast. So you can understand the place wasn't jam-packed. Well, about 7 o'clock that morning, the door to our room practically gets blown off the hinges. And in the door frame are the co-captains of the football team, Jeff Cook and Will Holbrook. And they come looming over us, big scary guys. And they said, "Get up, get dressed, and get over to chapel." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I think I sheepishly said, "Well, but it's voluntary." And they said, "Listen, Canterbury's a Catholic school. They're praying right now, and we're not giving them any advantage whatsoever. Get over it." And indeed he did, and the chapel was quite full that morning. Well, anyway, so the game happens. Same thing, I'm 15 years old, and it's a sunny day. It's an unbelievable game. The game's decided on the last play when a track star named Tony Halsey comes out of nowhere to stop the Canterbury runner from scoring the touchdown that would have won the game for Canterbury. Westminster preserves its undefeated season. Okay. Big impression on a young boy. Now I'm going to go forward about 40 years, and I get a letter. Now I'm in business. I get a letter from the school saying they're having a retirement dinner for Hub, Dave Hovey, the coach. And of course I'm going to go. And then I get another notice saying that the Hubbies want me to actually. I'm okay. Sit with it, actually, which was a great honor. I had been actually Hub's quarterback for 3 years in the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And so I wanted to say something, and I kind of was thinking about what am I going to say? And I thought, well, I think I'm just going to talk about that team and what it was like to be 15. And as I was driving to the dinner, I thought, well, what if nobody shows up from that team? Because the whole story was about the team. And I got up, said hi to Hub and Jenks. It was a nice, but there were a lot of people, like there were 300 people in this room. And I still hadn't really seen anything from this team that I was going to talk about. But then when I got to speak, kind of deep in the middle around this circular table, most of the players were sitting together. So I kind of talk about what the season was like, what it was like for me, how I saw these people, and then I started naming the people at the table. Malcolm Swayze, Tommy McNichols, Tony Halsey, Will Holbrook, Billy Minshall. And the fact that I can name all those people now, this many years since, and as I'm speaking, I'm kind of looking at that table, and I can see what's happening. They're kind of talking, they're talking to each other, and they're really confused, and they're pointing at each other, and they're pointing at me. And I know what they're saying. They're saying, "Who the hell is this?" Because I was a 9th grader when they were seniors. I was an insect. And they had no idea of the impact that you could even say they still have. So I tell you those, and then the last piece of it is that now I'm leaving the dinner. And this person that I've never seen before, a young guy, who comes up to me and goes, "Chris, I just want you to know, you were the person I was looking up I had no idea who he was, and I still have no idea what his name is. But my point in telling you this is that this is not just for the seniors, because all of you will be seniors one day. But I just want, if you can just keep in mind that there are younger people who are watching you, who are looking up to you, who need examples, who want to aspire to something. And if you can hold on to that, things will go well. And this will continue to be a great school.